Peace in from the black holes of Dakota Territory, United States of amateur radio, United States of apologies, United States of advantages, United States of electrolytic capacitors. Well, that doesn't begin with A, but maybe something does. The United States of the advantages of electrolytic capacitors. Well, recently, one of my viewers sent me a bunch of questions. Now, I've explained before, and I'm really sorry about this, that I simply do not have the energy at the present time to answer individualized questions, particularly in writing, because the medications that I'm on make it virtually impossible for me to coordinate the act of writing with the act of thinking, which may prove to be a problem during my next upcoming book project, but I am perfectly capable of editing manuscripts. So that shouldn't be too hard because it's a revision project. But here's the rub. I will answer one of the questions, and I think everybody has probably wondered about this from time to time. Is there any way to replace an electrolytic capacitor in a circuit with some kind of non-polarized capacitor with the same value and the same voltage rating? Well, theoretically, if you could replace an electrolytic capacitor, say a 470 microfarad electrolytic capacitor, with one that was not polarized but had the same capacitance and could handle the same amount of voltage, then the replacement would work perfectly well. The problem is that when you have capacitance values that high, the only capacitors that I know of that can function at that level of capacitance are the electrolytic or tantalum variety in some cases, but they are polarized, meaning that they require a certain direct current bias, and that bias is there in order to cause electrolysis to occur inside of the capacitor. That is why they call it an electrolytic. That electrolysis forms a thin oxide coating on the some of the material, or all of the material inside of the capacitor, making a dielectric which is extremely thin. And that extremely thin dielectric translates into large capacitance values. As for handling a lot of voltage, I'm not sure how they're able to do that, but some of those electrolytic capacitors that you'll find in older radios that did use very high voltage, they're pretty big affairs. So some of them are approaching the size of a prescription bottle, or even in some cases a small bottle of vegetables or canned fruits or something like that. But the electrolytics that we use in low voltage circuits these days, solid state circuits, are much smaller. Nevertheless, to the best of my knowledge, there is no satisfactory replacement for the polarized electrolytic capacitor when you need a lot of capacitance. I simply don't know how it could be done. You could place 1,000.1 microfarad disc ceramic capacitors in parallel and theoretically get, what would it be, 100 microfarads and non-polarized? Well, who wants to do that? I mean, who wants to try to kludge together 1,000 capacitors like that? And 0.1 is about as big as disc ceramic capacitors get. So the answer to your question, my fellow viewer, is, to the best of my knowledge, no, there is no replacement for an electrolytic in an application where you need a lot of capacitance. I just don't know of any. So with that note, I will close out this little ditty. He asked a bunch of other questions too, and I will try to get to them as time allows, but they'll all be videos. Because although the medication makes it very difficult for me to so much as add up a column of numbers. I don't know how the hell I'm going to do my income tax. I'm probably going to have to file for an extension of time. But while it makes it difficult to do that kind of work, and besides, I get so keyboarded out on the computer, it just gets to be too much. And someone comes at me with a bunch of questions, and they want me to answer them in writing. I'm sorry, I simply can't. But I hope that that'll answer the question not only for you, my fellow viewer, but for everybody watching this who's ever wondered whether you can replace an electrolytic with a non-polarized capacitor. In general, no, you can't. Stan Gibilisco saying peace out, and a technical so long from the black holes of Dakota Toriteri, United States of Electrolytic Capacitors, the USE. So long.